All right, let's get back to our breaking news for you this hour here on RT International. Fresh blazes have erupted in Calais' infamous jungle refugee camp during the third day of the eviction operation. We're showing you live pictures here on RT International with enormous plumes of smoke there in the background, ultimately right above the refugee jungle camp. Let's patch through now to RT's Harry Fear, who's joining us live on the phone from France. Harry, the very latest from where you are, we have seen the most stunning pictures now, well, since last night's late hours.
Rory, speaking to you from Calais, it seems then that these fires are going to be the symbol of, if not day 2, day 3, then even the whole final demolition operation of the so-called jungle. We were there very late last night in the early hours of this morning when there was that massive fire which engulfed several structures. The details now coming through then that appeared to be augmented, if you will, by some kind of gas canister being caught up in an otherwise smaller fire, and that injured apparently one of the residents of the camp. But we then saw all of these other smaller fires at night being apparently intentionally set by, well, it's unknown whether they were migrants or indeed perhaps anti-borders activists who have sort of infiltrated the camp. What we saw was that fires were starting just about as quickly as the fire brigade was able to tend to them to put them out, although sometimes the fire officers didn't seem particularly engaged in the operation and didn't seem to be responding as fast as they otherwise could have been. So certainly extraordinary scenes with these fires then, and they're continuing today as well in different locations throughout the camp, just as they were about this time yesterday. But it's extraordinary then to see not just these fires, but also the vast number of people of having left the camp. There is still probably a couple or even a few thousand left in the camp, but it has the feeling of being vastly empty now in comparison to before, and of course vast patches of it now have been devastated by fire. So what exactly may be causing these fires? Well, that was our key question on the ground last night, and we saw that there was an air of intentionality to them. However, the prefecture of Calais has suggested that this is intentionally the migrants burning down their former homes as some kind of tradition. As I mentioned also, some talk that, anti-borders activists are the ones responsible for starting some of these devastating fires. So question marks remain then over exactly why these fires have been started. But as I say, certainly they've become a symbol of, day 3, if not the whole Calais demolition operation.
All right, RT's Harry Fear live via phone from Calais. Thank you. In the meantime, France has been hit by a wave of police protests, with officers venting their anger over working conditions and the rise of violence against security forces. Police say they can no longer protect themselves while on duty.
There's so much anger, it boils over. The police are fearful today. We've become targets. We need to use the law. Thugs need to be punished. They're the ones who should be wary.
Now, the demonstrations were initially sparked by a petrol bomb attack on a police car in a Paris suburb 2 weeks ago. 4 officers were injured, 1 was left fighting for his life, but no arrests were made. And the following troubling image was captured just 2 weeks earlier. Molotov cocktails thrown at riot police during clashes amid labor protests in Paris. 5 officers were hospitalized after the violent demonstrations. Now, attacks against police in France are of particular concern in so-called no-go zones, where officers say they cannot apply the law due to migrant violence. Here's what a French police union chief told us.
There
are certain problem areas in France where police cannot intervene because it's not safe for them. There's no other way to call these areas other than no-go zones.
But Prime Minister Manuel Valls claimed early this month that such no-go zones don't even exist. That sparked a furious response from the police. So RT's Anastasia Cherkina travelled to one such no-go zone neighbourhood which has been accused of being out of control.
So we're now in the north of Paris, said to be one of the neighborhoods where gangs operate, and most Parisians say that people don't usually come here unless they're coming here to either buy drugs. Some have told us that people come here if they want to get weapons, and this is one of the areas where every single expert and police member we've spoken to has said that it's really not a good idea to go.
Are so-called no-go zones in France a reality? The French government says no.
The government does not recognize these areas of lawlessness, just like the previous government.
But the police have been telling a different story. Nightly protests in Paris have seen policemen come out onto the streets to speak out.
There is a lot of bad boys who want to kill a policeman.
Our colleagues are injured every day. It's getting worse and worse. We've had enough. We're sick of it. When it comes to these lawless areas, it's a reality. It's not fiction.
This daytime attack on police in Paris earlier this month has sparked a debate in the country about neighborhoods that make it increasingly dangerous and difficult for police to enforce the law. France's National Crime Observatory says the number of police and gendarmes injured while on duty rose by 25% in the last 5 years.
Le paysage français a évolué très rapidement.
The landscape of the country has been changing very rapidly. Mass migration has produced its results. Today we have entire zones that are fully controlled by tribal groups. This situation unraveled at a speed that no one anticipated.
C'est des lieux qui se mettent à côté de la République.
There are communities that exist alongside the Republic, areas that have their own rules, their own society, their own economy, that are often based on trafficking, mostly the trafficking of drugs. So we have two types of societies living side by side, the rest of France and then these certain areas.
We visit several such areas in a car with tinted windows so our cameras aren't visible.
We know that whenever journalists have traveled to these neighborhoods, usually it's recommended to at least try to not get out of the car because media have gotten their equipment stolen and attacked. I mean, obviously this is the kind of neighborhood where locals are not really interested in having cameras pointed at them. So we also know that there's smaller streets here where gangs have a sort of operation going where you can't really get in without being questioned about what you're doing there, because some of the locations where people sell drugs, and if they see somebody who doesn't belong in the area, it becomes a bit of a problem.
In the latest incident this weekend, a bus was destroyed here by a fire started by 3 masked individuals.
Même si les policiers bénéficiaient de tout ce qu'ils demandaient.
Even if the police get all the means they're demanding, all the extra men they need, this will not solve the problem, because the problem is much more social and much more profound. Enormous immigration that was imposed on the French people. The situation will continue aggravating and lead to a crisis much more serious than what we're experiencing today.
Anastasia Cherkina, RT, Paris.
Thanks for sharing your Wednesday with us here on RT International. Coming up next now, a glimpse inside China's rehab camps for internet addicts. Unless you're in the UK or Ireland, thank you for joining us. Afshin Ratansi and Going Underground. That'll be for you.